Okay, I said that they're both equal, but you didn't really tell us about the pros and cons of each. Let's go over the key differences between these two to finalize everything that we've talked about. Functional programming is all about performing many different operations for which the data is fixed. So that's many operations. Object-oriented programming is about few operations on common data. In a functional program, we have the idea of stateless. That is, we don't modify state. State is immutable. Versus an object-oriented programming that is very stateful. We are modifying state. A feature of objects is that an object's procedures can access and often modify the data fields of the object, right? We have the idea of this and self in objects, and we can modify them in classes. In functional programming, our functions are pure. There are no side effects. It means that the functions that we write don't make an impact on the code that is running outside of that function. On object-oriented programming, there are definitely side effects. Methods manipulate our internal state. Now, the interesting thing and why functional programming is becoming popular is because of this idea of purity. Because of this, with the functions that have no side effects, it means that we can start running code in parallel on multiple processors and it won't have effect on our program. Versus in object-oriented programming where we can't do that because our functions have side effects. With functional programming, it's more declarative. It's about what we want to be doing. Versus an object-oriented program, which is more about how we want it to be done, which is more imperative. So when should you use one over the other? Well, functional programming is quite good at processing large data for applications. If you're analyzing data, user data, maybe using it for a machine learning model, functional programming works really well for high performance in processors, for example, because you can run it on multiple processors. If you have few things that require a lot of operations, a lot of little functions applied to it, well then functional programming is usually a good idea. If, on the other hand, you have many things like characters in a game with not too many operations, with few operations, well then object-oriented programming might be a better solution. But as I said before, you can use the ideas from both of these to write your code. For example, in this React app, our RoboFriends app from my other course, well, here we see that React uses classes to extend component. We have a constructor we calling our super so that the component class, which is a class provided by the React library, can be constructed so that we have the ability of the component class. And then we also have methods that we create onto this class. But at the same time, there's also this idea of functional programming. If we go to our components, that is, the components on our website, these little pieces of JSX, which convert to HTML, well, they're just pure functions. The cart component just receives an input of properties and produces an output based on that input. No matter how many times I run this, with the same input, it's going to deliver the same output. It's just pure functions without state. So remember, in all programs, there are two primary components, the data and the behaviors. Object-oriented programming says, hey, bring together the data and the behavior in a single location called object or class. This is going to allow us to understand our program easier and be more organized. Functional programming says that data and behavior are distinctly different things and should be kept separate for clarity. I hope these principles will be useful to you in your future, and I hope you learned a lot. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.